Okay, welcome to the deep dive. You've brought us some, well, really interesting source material today. It's an excerpt from a video looking at some recent stuff happening in Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
And our plan for this deep dive is really just to get into the key takeaways from this source, specifically around youth protests and how the government's reacting, at least as this video shows it.
Exactly. We're looking through the lens of this particular source. And it focuses right in on something pretty striking. These masked individuals poking up online, posting videos, and they're openly criticizing the government and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman MBS.
Right. And that seems to be the main thing in this video clip, doesn't it? These anonymous voices, masked figures, basically saying things are getting worse there.
Yeah.
And really hitting out at the direction the country's going, especially what they see as too much Westernization.
That's the jumping off point. The source describes how this is playing out online. It talks about a whole series of videos, mostly on TikTok apparently, showing men hiding their faces with masks.
And the source mentions the specifics, like how they look and sound.
It does. Faces covered, often just the eyes showing, and it says their voices are frequently altered, changed somehow.
So clearly trying hard not to be identified.
Well, you'd assume so, right? And the source suggests that's probably a reaction to the climate there. The purpose stated in the videos themselves is blunt.
Okay.
They're criticizing the quality of life, just generally in Saudi Arabia, and specifically demanding the overthrow of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
The source uses the word ouster, I think.
Yes, ouster.
And how's this stuff being received? What does the source say about reactions?
So the video claims these clips get reposted a lot onto other social media sites. It says they get mixed reactions, praise, and criticism.
What?
But importantly, the source emphasizes they're getting mostly praise, not necessarily for the content maybe, but for the act itself, for speaking out like this.
Okay. So why are they protesting? According to the videos themselves, what are the main complaints?
Well, the source points to major economic complaints first. These masked figures are claiming worsening living conditions and a real lack of employment opportunities.
And the source contrasts that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It mentions the government spending huge amounts on, I think it calls them extravagant entertainment events and mega projects.
It does. And that apparent gap, between where the money's going and the problems people say they're facing, that seems central to their argument as presented here.
It definitely raises questions about priorities.
Yeah.
As the source lays it out.
Absolutely. And it's not just economics. There are also pretty strong cultural and religious objections being voiced, too.
Right.
The masked men criticize what they call moral decay, and they link that directly to the government's deep ties with the Western world, and also, interestingly, with Israel.
This is where it gets really specific, I thought. The source gives examples what they mean by Westernization, connecting it to the Vision 2030 plan. It lists things like dance clubs, concerts, whose guests are mostly barely clad female celebrities of Hollywood, fashion shows, and DJ nights on cursed lands. It's quite the list.
It is, and the source frames this as seeing a shift away from traditional Islam to more of a Western land.
And that feeling, that sense of losing traditional values, that fuels the political side, the call to remove the crown prince.
That seems to be the connection the source makes, yes. That call for the ouster of the crown prince. The masked voices, as quoted in the source, they say the nation is increasing turmoil because of the policy of Mohammed bin Salman.
So they're blaming him directly for the economic issues, the cultural shifts, the turmoil.
Directly. His leadership, his policies, that's the claim presented.
Okay, so given they're being so direct, how does the government usually handle criticism, according to this source?
The source doesn't mince words here. It says flat out the government does not take criticism lightly at all.
And it gives examples, right? Pretty severe ones.
Extremely severe. It mentions Salih al-Thalib, identified as an imam from the Grand Mosque in Mecca.
Okay.
The source says he got 10 years in jail just for a sermon criticizing attempts to westernize holy lands with, entertainment and mixed gatherings.
10 years for a sermon. Wow.
And then there's the case of Mohammed bin Nasir Algami, a retired teacher, 55 years old.
What happened to him?
The source alleges he was given a death sentence.
A death sentence? For what?
Just for expressing views online, questioning the government's changing ways. That's what the source claims.
A death sentence for posting online. Yeah, that's chilling. And the source makes a direct link, doesn't it, between that kind of crackdown and why people are wearing masks.
Exactly. It basically says this level of severity is the reason why some people feel this is the only way, that there's no other way to express dissent without facing extreme consequences, so they resort to masks and voice changers.
Right. Makes sense.
And if you look at the broader comments in the source, it suggests Saudi Arabia has seen significant moral decay, especially since Vision 2030 started, alongside normalization with Israel and strong ties with the U.S., sometimes seemingly over its Arab neighbors. And this, the source says, has led to criticism from Muslims around the world too, not just inside.
So it's not just internal dissent the source is highlighting, but also this feeling of disapproval from some outside the kingdom about its direction.
Precisely. And the source also makes a point of saying it's not just these masked guys. It claims many ordinary Saudis also don't agree with the government's path.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it suggests they too are angered by the Westernization of the Holy Lands, but they feel powerless, like they have no choice except to accept the laws and keep patience because they've seen what happens to critics.
Which just reinforces why the mask videos are happening. No other safe way to speak up, it seems.
It paints that picture, yes.
The source even includes that quote, doesn't it, from one of the masked men? Something like, "The voice of the Arab youth will not be silenced."
Yeah. The youth love the truth and do not love falsehood. I fight every stubborn tyrant, and separation destroys me without a fight. It's presented as a very defiant statement.
Definitely sounds like it.
And the source interprets these clips, these masked videos, as proof that people haven't let the love of dunya, which means like worldly things, materialism, infiltrate their hearts. It frames it as them rejecting this invasion of the Western world into the holy land of Saudi Arabia where Prophet Muhammad once walked.
So it connects the protest to a kind of deep spiritual historical resistance. That's the source's take.
Okay, so putting it all together, the source shows us economic frustration, cultural and religious pushback against Westernization, all happening against this backdrop of a really harsh government response, leading to this very specific kind of online protest using masks.
That sums it up well based on this video excerpt.
So after all that, what are the big unanswered questions that the source leaves us with?
Well, the source itself raises them. Like, how is MBS actually going to handle this mask movement online?
Yeah. What happens if they catch these guys? Especially given those examples of severe punishment we just talked about.
And the million-dollar question, I guess.
Right. Could this movement, as the source depicts it, actually lead to MBS being overthrown? Could it get that big?
And the source's answer
is basically, we don't know. Only time will tell.
Right. So for you, the listener, what we've tried to do in this deep dive is take that source material you brought to us and really unpack what it's showing. We've looked at these mass protests online, how they started, what they look like, their stated aims.
And we explored the reasons given in the videos themselves, the economic struggles, the objections to cultural changes framed as Westernization, often linked back to Vision 2030.
And crucially, we put it in the context the source provides. This picture of a government that reacts very, very strongly to dissent, with those specific examples of harsh penalties, which, again, the source says is why the masks are necessary.
Yeah, and it also touches on those wider concerns mentioned in the source about these changes causing unease, not just inside Saudi Arabia, but potentially among some Muslims globally, too.
So what this deep dive into your source really highlights is this really complex situation, doesn't it? You've got this push for rapid modernization, clashing with deep-seated cultural and religious identity. And then there's the whole difficulty of expressing dissent when the risks are so high. But technology, the digital world, offers new, albeit dangerous ways to do it. These masked voices really bring that tension into sharp focus.
It definitely portrays a moment of significant tension and, yeah, a lot of uncertainty about what comes next for the kingdom.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for bringing the source material for the deep dive. It's given us a very specific window based on this video into a really complex and evolving situation. Definitely leaves us, and you, with a lot to think about regarding dissent, change, and technology today.